Hi guys, Thursday 21st of May, just gone 4:30 in the afternoon on the east coast of Australia where I am, and it's just gone 2:30 on the east coast of the United States of America. I'm on QMAP and there's been another post since my video I did a few hours ago. Post 4299 came on the boards at 11:12 my time this morning. Starts off with this pic of a Q post from July 2nd, 2018, which read, "Normally intelligence passed on from a member of the Five Eyes Alliance, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK and the US, to another member comes through an official channel for intelligence sharing. However, Nunes, upon reviewing the document that formally launched the FBI's investigation, said there was no intelligence shared through that official channel, meaning that the intelligence was shared through unofficial means." Now Q's adding this, "Important to note, future events, masking versus unmasking, incidentally intercepted versus direct or targeted, 702 collection, minimisation procedures versus CIA versus Five Eyes. How does the CIA collect intelligence?" And then gives us this link, which is to a page from the National Archives talking about executive orders, and in particular Executive Order 12333, United States Intelligence Activities. And as you can see, you can stroll through this document via the links. Q continues on, "CIA not governed by FISA intelligence operations conducted outside the US. FBI is under FISA. Foreign intelligence mission is principally domestic. Target location US or abroad. Travelling rules. Foreign intelligence collection of US persons. Official versus unofficial. What central ABC agency played quarterback? Q." Oh my goodness. I'm lost. This is one of those cryptic drops that Q makes that get us all going. How does the CIA collect intelligence? Well, suggesting that they're doing it unofficially, using one of the partners of Five Eyes, more than likely Australia or the UK, and the fact that CIA is not governed by FISA, but FBI is. Otherwise, guys, make of it what you will. I certainly can't answer the question what ABC agency played quarterback, although you would think by the hint here of central it could be the CIA. And just taking that one step further, Q used to always call it the C_A because he didn't believe there was any intelligence in there. I notice he's gone back to using CIA. Food for thought, guys, food for thought. And just having a look at the post on the board, someone answers Qatar Central Intelligence. Someone here commenting the CIA can collect SIGINT on foreign targets without a warrant. The CIA surveilled the Russian ambassador after Obama kicked them out. They called Flynn in the Dominican Republic while Flynn was on vacation. Flynn was never unmasked. They didn't need to because they knew who the Russian ambassador was calling, because they knew Flynn was there on vacation. They never unmasked Flynn. DNI, someone else is suggesting. Here we go again. There won't be anyone with a common theme here. Moving on, we'll have a look at what else is making news today. And we'll start, as usual, with the Donald Trump tweets. I'll start with this one, which is 12:23 a.m. my time this morning. "Now that our country is transitioning back to greatness, I am considering rescheduling the G7 on the same or similar date in Washington, D.C. at the legendary Camp David. The other members are also beginning their comeback. It would be a great sign to all. Normalisation." And yes, I think if all of the G7 countries could get together in Washington, I think that would be a sign that things are getting back to normal. This tweet, "Great news for the Dallas area. Dallas Area Rapid Transit, DART, will be receiving $229 million in funding to keep frontline workers and many riders that depend on transit employed and safe. This will be critical to the economic recovery. And we saw yesterday the amount of money that was going out to the transits of various states, and here's another $229 million. Then more money. The Tulsa, Oklahoma area has been approved for a transportation loan from the US Department of Trade of up to $120 million to help expand highway on the Gilcrease Expressway West project. This will mean less congestion and faster routes to popular spots. Now, I know this money is going on infrastructure, and that's what Donald Trump wants to see. And this is a lot of money, isn't it, going out at the same time as the coronavirus bills, talking about trillions. You don't just find this sort of money down the back of the couch. Then Donald Trump tells us about crazy Bernie Sanders, who's not a fighter. He gives up too easy. The Dem establishment gets Alfred E. Newman, Mayor Pete, and Amy Klobuchar to quit and endorse Sleepy Joe before Super Tuesday, and gets Pocahontas to stay in the race, taking thousands of votes from Bernie. He would have beaten Sleepy Joe in a landslide every state if these events didn't happen. Even if Warren just dropped out, he would have easily won. Dems did it to him with crooked Hillary, and now even more so, and Bernie doesn't even complain. Vote for Trump on trade. Better than BS. He's telling it like it is, once again. Then Q goes on the board, quite a gap, 334, Q's on. The last tweet by Donald Trump, 110, so no correlations there. Then another post by Q, which we've seen. Another post by Q. And then this tweet from Donald Trump. Michigan sends absentee ballot applications to 7.7 million people ahead of the primaries and the general election. This was done illegally and without authorization by a rogue Secretary of State. I will ask to hold up funding to Michigan if they want to go down this voter path fraud. Good on you. Absolutely. You can see where this is heading. Q asks us all the time, is this about the virus or about the election? And of course, here's that proof. It's about the election. Michigan, what are you doing? Look, cut off their funding. It's the only way they'll take notice then. And Politico saying that he mistook that mail-in policy. And the article says that Trump mischaracterized the situation and includes this bit of video.
From Michigan. He's threatened to keep funding away from Michigan.
Yeah, well, I have very specific funding. I just spoke with the governor. We didn't discuss that. We really discussed more the topic at hand plus the dams breaking. So we didn't, but we'll let you know if it's necessary. You'll be finding out. They'll be finding out very soon if it's necessary. I don't think it's going to be necessary because mail-in ballots are a very dangerous thing. They're subject to massive fraud. How can you do that? You have people signing ballots. Who knows who's signing these ballots? They have a ballot. They pick the ballot. They take them out of mailboxes. They go around and accumulate them. They harvest. I guess the word is harvest them. And it was especially prevalent in California, and it's just not a fair situation.
Donald Trump posted that at 4:13 a.m. At 4:18, Q's back on the board. 5 minutes yet. And then at 4:34, Donald Trump continues tweeting, this time a message about the Cuban Independence Day. And then Donald Trump tweeted out a reference to this executive order on regulatory relief to support the economic recovery. And it refers back to the fact that this is about coronavirus and the fact that he declared a national emergency beginning March 1, 2020, and then sets out basically policies as to how things are going to come back to normal, whatever normal will mean in the future. Then it was Q's turn to be back on the board, post 4297, 4298, and then Donald Trump's back with a tweet, great call for thousands of our Hispanic community, business and faith leaders today. And then Q puts up post 4299. Continue on, Donald Trump tweets out, spokesman speaks stupidly on behalf of China, trying desperately to deflect the pain and carnage that their country spread throughout the world. Its disinformation and propaganda attack on the United States and Europe is a disgrace. It all comes from the top. They could have easily stopped the plague, but they didn't. So that's a real step forward in the so-called US-China war. He's now putting it back up to the president. I think it all comes from the top. It could have been easily stopped, but they didn't. And then he tweets out, China is on a massive disinformation campaign because they are desperate to have sleepy Joe Biden win the presidential race so they can continue to rip off the United States as they have done for decades until I came along. And this confirms my thoughts that the Democrats are being assisted by China to try to get rid of Donald Trump. They'll do anything because it's in their interest as well as the Democrats. And that was the last tweet by Donald Trump a couple of hours ago now. So one of the big stories out today about Susan Rice, Gateway Pundit's got this story. Breaking, Susan Rice teams confirmed she was directed by the White House counsel to write the January 20, 2017 email about the secret Oval Office meeting. And you'll remember that she sent that email to herself. And this story comes from a tweet from Gillian Turner, who says, breaking, Ambassador Rice's team confirms to Fox News that she was directed by White House counsel to write the January 20, 2017 memorandum documenting an Oval Office meeting in which President Obama and national security officials discussed Michael Flynn. And Gateway Pundit's got this story update. Susan Rice tells CBS Joe Biden's quid pro quo with Ukraine was at the request of Barack Obama. And just before we have a listen to that, this is a transcription from Biden and Poroshenko. And if you read this, and I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see exactly why this was a quid pro quo, unlike what they accused Donald Trump of doing. And then the article says, now this, during an interview with CBS News on October 2019, former Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice says the orders came from the top by Barack Obama. Let's just have a listen.
We learned this morning that Ukraine is going to revisit some of the claims against the Bidens, even if they didn't break the law and there's no evidence that they did. I do remember that it was politically awkward back in 2015 when his son was involved in the country as he was dealing with anti-corruption efforts. Did he mishandle the situation at the very least?
Joe Biden?
Yeah.
Not in my opinion. Joe Biden was doing what he was asked to do by the President of the United States, consistent with serving our policy interests. Our policy interests that we were shared with the European Union and the IMF was to root out corruption. And this prosecutor that he was pushing on all of our behalf to have removed was a corrupt prosecutor who was supposed to go after corruption. So the difference here is very simple. President Trump, on the one hand, is asking Ukraine for a favor that benefits him personally and politically. Joe Biden, on behalf of President Obama of the United States and the Western world, was asking and pushing for the removal of somebody who, on behalf of our policy, on behalf of our national interest.
There you go, for what it's worth. I think she's in real big trouble. And Gateway Pundit's got this story on Susan Rice as well. Her email to herself was not created to cover for her and Obama. It was created to cover everyone's backsides, but instead it backfired. And this story says former US Attorney Brett Tolman spoke out about Susan Rice's email to herself. In a series of tweets, he shows that Rice's efforts were not only to cover her and Obama's behinds, but they were to cover everyone's behinds. Unfortunately for all, the effort backfired. And then there's a series of those tweets from Brett Tolman. And this story's of interest in the Washington Examiner. Susan Rice's vice presidential hopes hamstrung by Benghazi and the unmasking controversy. Susan Rice wants to be Joe Biden's running mate. I didn't know that. The question is whether the presumptive 2020 Democratic presidential nominee wants her on his ticket. I would certainly say yes, Rice told PBS Thursday. I know Joe Biden well. I've worked with him very closely. I know he'll be a great president of the United States, and from my vantage point, I'm committed to do all I can to help him win and to help him govern. She added, if that were the role in which he felt I could best serve, then I'm not going to say no. And just a reminder here at this point that if you want to see what Susan Rice had said, you can find the transcript here. I'll leave the links. And here's another story from Gateway Pundit, following on the same line, really. Can't applaud the efforts of Christopher Wray for anything I know, says Sidney Powell. Let's have a listen to what she says.
Let's start with Johnson making the assertion that Christopher Wray is covering up here. Your reaction?
Well, he's been in office quite a long time now, Lou, and he certainly did not produce to the defense the exculpatory evidence regarding General Flynn that's been in the FBI files for at least 3 years, or take it to the Attorney General or anything else that we know of. Apparently it had to be pried out of the FBI with extreme leverage. So I can't applaud the efforts of Christopher Wray from anything I know or have seen. On top of that, he was Andrew Weissman's supervisor when Weissman was at Department of Justice on the Enron Task Force and destroyed Arthur Anderson, sent 4 Merrill Lynch executives to prison on an indictment that didn't state an offense while they hid the evidence that showed they were innocent for 6 years. It's the same old pattern, and Mr. Wray is part of it.
I suggest you watch the full video. These days, Sidney Powell is really pushing the barrow against the deep state. Another interesting story out of Gateway Pundit today. Lots of interesting stories just to help you on your way. And this one, electronic communication used to launch FBI's Crossfire Hurricane spy operation on Trump's campaign finally declassified and released. This was obtained by Judicial Watch. The story reads, in July of 2016, Peter Strzok opened a counterintel investigation into Trump's camp dubbed Crossfire Hurricane on suspicions based on no evidence that the Russians had infiltrated Trump's circle. For years, the DOJ and the FBI have resisted the release of this communication, and now we know why. It revealed the entire spying operation was a scam. Well, come on. How many times do we need to be told? People have to wake up. The document was declassified and released with redactions. Interesting. The communication reveals Peter Strzok opened Crossfire Hurricane based on third-hand information that the Russian government, quote, had been seeking prominent members of the Donald Trump campaign in which to engage to prepare for potential post-election relations should Trump be elected US president, end quote. What a load of nonsense, written by a public servant, basically. Peter Strzok also alleged Trump campaign foreign policy advisor George Papadopoulos claimed to be an unnamed individual that they, the Russians, could assist the Trump campaign with the anonymous release of information during the campaign that would be damaging to Hillary Clinton. Quote, it was unclear whether he, Papadopoulos, or the Russians were referring to material acquired publicly through other means. It was unclear how Mr. Trump's team reacted to the offer. We note that the Trump team's reaction could, in the end, have little bearing of what Russia decides to do with or without Trump's cooperation. More words written by a public servant. What do they really mean? It was unclear what was going on, so we just decided to have a look. And here is the document. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see for yourself. A lot of words, and well done Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch for getting that document out. And here's another story out of Gateway Pundit, and again another interesting development. The Supreme Court has blocked the House Democrats from accessing Mueller's grand jury materials. The court issued a stay giving the DOJ until June 1, 2020 to file a formal appeal. The House Judiciary Committee requested the documents for its never-ending investigation and harassment of President Trump. The US Supreme Court released the statement on Wednesday. You can have a look at it, but of course it's just a legal mumbo-jumbo. Interesting story here in the Daily Caller. FBI offered to pay Christopher Steele significantly to dig up dirt on Michael Flynn. Quite a detailed story, highlights former British spy Christopher Steele peddled an unfounded rumour in December 2016 that Michael Flynn had an extramarital affair with a Russian woman, according to documents released earlier in May, and that Russian woman is Svetlana Lakova. Months before Steele discussed Flynn, the FBI offered to pay the ex-spy to collect intelligence on Flynn and other Trump associates who were the targets of counterintelligence investigations. An FBI source provided information about Flynn that matches what Steele provided the Bureau. An FBI memo from early 2017 also said rumours about Flynn and a Russian-British woman, Svetlana Lakova, began circulating in the media in March 2017. Now, this is a very detailed report, definitely worth your time, and it's suggesting that basically the FBI started the rumour about Flynn and Svetlana, and Christopher Steele gave it credibility, I'm guessing, and it was mentioned in the IG's report but overlooked. Effectively, we'll start here. Two documents released in recent weeks raised the question of whether the FBI's request of Steele had any link to the rumours that Flynn had an affair with a Russian woman. One of the documents is a transcript of long-time no-name associate David Kramer's interview with the House Intelligence Committee. Kramer testified on December 17, 2017 that Steele told him in December 2016 that he suspected that Flynn had an extramarital affair with a Russian woman. There was one thing he mentioned to me that is not included here, and that is he believed that Mr. Flynn had an extramarital affair with a Russian woman in the UK. You'll remember that this spy said that after dinner and drinks, Flynn surprised everyone, leaving in a cab with a person the FBI source suspected had ties to Russia, Svetlana Lakova. Lakova has denied allegations of wrongdoing, and she said that she met Flynn just once at the Cambridge event, and even Lakova's husband told the Daily Caller that he picked Lakova up after the dinner and that she did not leave with Flynn. A lot to read and a lot to absorb. The Last Refuge has got the story, Washington Post confirms Flynn's name not masked in the Obama briefing material. Open FBI investigation intercepted Kislyak's call and generated a transcript. The Washington Post confirmed today what we've been saying for almost 2 years. Michael Flynn's name was never masked in the FBI intercept of his call. And here's the part that matters. Quoting from the Washington Post, in the FBI report about the communications between the two men, Flynn's name was never redacted. Former US officials said it was the FBI, not the NSA, that wiretapped Kislyak's calls and created the summary and transcript, the former officials said. When the FBI circulated, they included Flynn's name from the beginning because it was essential to understanding its significance, said a former senior US official who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe sensitive intelligence. They were therefore no request for the unmasking of that information. Okay, so there's no named source there, but nevertheless confirming what's been coming out in the news of recent times, and that is that the unmasking wasn't necessary because Flynn's name was never masked. One American News has got the story today, Senate approves the subpoena in GOP's Hunter Biden Burisma probe. The story reads that the Senate Homeland Committee has voted along party lines to subpoena Blue Star, a consulting firm for Ukrainian gas company Burisma Holdings. Wednesday's vote followed growing speculation over why Hunter Biden, the son of former Vice President Joe Biden, had worked on the top advisory board of the Ukrainian firm despite his inexperience. So things are moving along. The Senate Homeland Committee should have something to announce very soon. And another shout out here to the Epoch Times. They put up another infographic, this time on the Chinese Communist Party's virus propaganda war. And these charts are very useful for anyone who wants to see a visual from the 40,000 feet point of view. As you can see, everything here is in high definition, so it allows you to read it. You can follow the connections here via the various links. Not very clear here at this level, but when you raise it up, you can see Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman linked to this tweet here, a suspected CCP bot on Twitter. For what it's worth, guys, for what it's worth. Red State's got this article, Undercover Huber. Mueller team may have leaked fake story to CNN to sway the Manafort judge and put anything past them. In the lengthy Twitter thread below, Undercover Huber tells of a 100% false story that was leaked by someone to the CNN and published on September 18, 2017. CNN had reported that the bombshell story, the Crossfire Hurricane team had obtained a FISA warrant on Paul Manafort. Undercover believes the leaker may have been a member of the special counsel's team. Their motive would have been to influence DC's chief judge into allowing the Supreme Court official to pierce Manafort's attorney-client privilege. And here's the thread. I'll leave you a link. And there's this story out of What Does It Mean Today? Communist Chinese saboteurs destroy US fighter jets worth over $420 million at a Florida base. My goodness. The story includes this link to the war zone. F-35 has crashed in Florida. Second aircraft lost for Elgin Air Force Base in 5 days. Again, just out of interest. And just as I'm finishing up, checking what's happening, I see Donald Trump has put up a tweet now about that Daily Caller article that we've just had a look at. FBI offered to pay Christopher Steele significantly to dig up dirt on Michael Flynn. So his 80 million followers will now be aware of that story. Anyway, that's where I'll leave it for now. Enjoy your coffee or what you've got left of it. Follow those stories if you've got any interest, and I'll see you tonight. Cheers.